Ray Reardon. Raymond Reardon, born 8 October 1932, is a Welsh retired professional snooker player who dominated the sport in the 1970s, winning 6 world championships. He was world champion in 1970, 1973, 1974, 1975, 1976, and 1978, and runner-up in the 1982 World Championship. He won the inaugural Pot Black tournament in 1969. Reardon was snooker's first dominant force of the modern era and was the first #1 ranked player when world rankings were introduced in the 1976-77 season, holding the top-ranking position for the next 5 years. His dominance throughout the 1970s prefigured that of Steve Davis in the 1980s and Stephen Hendry in the 1990s. He regained the #1 ranking in 1982, but his form declined thereafter, and he dropped out of the elite top 16 ranked players after the 1986-87 season. He retired from the professional game in 1991. Reardon remained one of snooker's top players into his 50s. He is snooker's oldest world champion in 1978, aged 45 years and 203 days, the oldest player to win a ranking event in 1982, aged 50 years and 14 days, and the oldest player to hold the #1 ranking in 1982, aged 50. He also worked with Ronnie O'Sullivan in a coaching role, helping him to win the 2004 world title. Despite being a genial figure, Reardon's dark widow's peak and sharp-toothed grin earned him the nickname Dracula. Early life. Reardon was born on 8 October 1932 in the coal mining community of Tredegar in Monmouthshire. Wanting to play snooker, he turned down a place at a grammar school to become a miner at Tytrist Colliery, aged 14, following in the footsteps of his father. After a rockfall in which he was buried for 3 hours, he quit mining and became a police officer when his family moved to Stoke-on-Trent in Staffordshire. Amateur career. Aged 15, Reardon beat fellow Welshman Jack Cowie in the British Youth Championship. Having won the Welsh amateur title from 1950-1955, Reardon failed to win the English title when he entered the event in 1956 and 1957. Finally, upon re-entering the 1964 event, he won the English amateur title, defeating John Spencer 11-8 in the final. This victory led to an invitation to tour South Africa. This proved to be so successful that Reardon was offered the chance to tour it again as a professional. On the back of this, Reardon resigned as a policeman and turned professional in 1967. Professional career. Reardon's first appearance at the World Championship was in 1969, and he won his first title the following year, beating John Pulman 37-33 in London. After winning the title, Reardon was in big demand for exhibitions and on the holiday camp circuit. Winning the first ever Pot Black in 1969 made him instantly recognizable. Entertainer. Reardon also became popular because he added a touch of humor and entertainment to his game. Considered a deadly long putter and tactician in his prime, he played 17 World Championship matches without defeat and won the title 4 years in succession. He won his second in 1973 in Manchester when he beat Eddie Charlton 38-32 after defeating John Spencer 23-22 in the semi-finals. Reardon beat Graham Miles the following year, and in 1975, when it was held in Melbourne, Australia, he had a tough quarter-final with Spencer, which he won 1917. He then beat Alex Higgins 1914 before meeting local hero Eddie Charlton in the final. Reardon initially trailed by 29 frames to 23, putting Charlton 2 frames away from the title, but Reardon then won 7 consecutive frames to lead 30-29. Charlton took the 60th frame to tie the match, but Reardon took the vital 61st and won his 4th title. Reardon scored heavily in the final, making breaks of 10,494,928,380 and 70. In January 1976, Reardon appeared on This Is Your Life. He had been suggested as a candidate for the program by snooker scene editor Clive Everton. The snooker-playing fraternity was represented by Alex Higgins, John Pulman, Jackie Rea, Graham Miles, John Spencer, Eddie Charlton, Cliff Thorburn, and female professional Joyce Gardner. Reardon won his 5th title the next year in Manchester, beating Alex Higgins 27-16. Earlier that year, he had won the Benson and Hedges Masters in London, his second snooker title after the World Championship. In this event, Reardon defeated John Pulman in the quarter-final 4-1, in a match where the highest break was only 22 by Pulman. Reardon improved his form in the semi-final to defeat Eddie Charlton 5-4 and Graham Miles 7-3 in the final. Reardon would never win the event again, but defeated Rex Williams 4-1 and Graham Miles 5-2 in the 1977 event, only to lose 6-7 to Doug Mountjoy in the final. Reardon's unbeaten run at the World Championship ended at the first Crucible Championship in 1977, when he lost to John Spencer in the quarter-finals 6-13, his first defeat since Rex Williams in 1972. Reardon regained the title in 1978, winning it for the 6th and final time by beating Doug Mountjoy 13-9 after trailing 2-7. Reardon remains the oldest winner of the World Championship at the age of 45 years and 6 months. Straight after this, Reardon regained the Pontins professional title, defeating John Spencer 7-2 in the final. Towards the end of 1978, Reardon beat Patsy Fagan 6-1 and Alex Higgins 11-9 in a high-quality final to win the one-off Champion of Champions event sponsored by the Daily Mirror and held at the Wembley Conference Centre. 1979 saw Reardon regain his pot black title by defeating Doug Mountjoy 2-1 in the final. It was Reardon's first win since he won the inaugural event in 1969, although he was runner-up in 1970, 1972, and 1980. That same year, Reardon joined Mountjoy and then world champion Terry Griffiths to win the first World Challenge Cup for Wales, defeating England Fred Davis, John Spencer, and Graham Miles easily 14-3 in the final. Indian Summer. After Reardon's 6th world title, he remained one of the world's best players for some years. He lost to Dennis Taylor in the 1979 quarter-final, and by David Taylor at the same stage in 1980. He went a step further in 1981, beating John Spencer 13-11 and Bill Werbeniuk 13-10 before being surprisingly beaten by fellow Welshman Doug Mountjoy in the semi-finals in what was Mountjoy's best-ever World Championship performance. Mountjoy scored a championship record break of 145 during the match, which he won 16-10. It was the rise of Steve Davis in 1980-81 that saw Reardon and his generation lose their grip on the game. However, despite Davis' domination between late 1980 and the spring of 1982, Reardon remained a major force in the game. At 49, he reached the world final in 1982, losing to Alex Higgins 15-18. For the 1982/3 season, Reardon returned to number 1 in the world rankings, which in those days were based only on performances at the World Championships over previous years. His career went through an Indian summer. He won the Players' Professional Tournament in late 1982, beating Jimmy White 10-5 in the final, reached the final of the Benson and Hedges Masters, losing 7-9 to Cliff Thorburn, and went on to win the 1983 International Masters, where he beat Steve Davis 2-1 in the semi-final group stages, before defeating Jimmy White 9-6 in the final, having trailed 3-5. Reardon also regained the Welsh professional title, hammering Terry Griffiths 9-4 and Doug Mountjoy 9-1 in the semi-final and final respectively. This led him to be fancied in some quarters for that year's World Championship, but he suffered his earliest ever defeat in the competition, losing 12-13 in a high-quality second-round match to Tony Knowles. Reardon also whitewashed Steve Davis twice during the latter's prime, firstly 6-0 in the 1982 Highland Masters semi-final, an event Reardon went on to win, and secondly in 1988 see below. Reardon reached the semi-finals of the World Championships once more in 1985, losing 5-16 to Davis. He last played at the Crucible in 1987, losing to Steve Davis again in the second round. World number 1. When the snooker world rankings were introduced in 1976, Reardon was the first number 1, retaining that position until 1981/1982. His win in the 1982 Professional Players Tournament at the age of 50 led to his recapturing the world number 1 position in the first set of rankings to be calculated on tournaments other than the World Championship. Reardon remains the oldest player, at 50, ever to win a ranking tournament. He has also won the State Express World Team Classic for Wales during the first 2 years of the tournament in 1979 and 1980 with Mountjoy and Terry Griffiths. He also won the Welsh Professional Championship in 1981 and 1983. His last final was the 1985 World Doubles, when he partnered Tony Jones and lost to Steve Davis and Tony Meo 5-12. He was awarded the MBE in the same year. Retirement and later years. Reardon developed eyesight problems and started wearing Dennis Taylor-style glasses later on in his career. He went out of the top 16 in 1987, but whitewashed Steve Davis 5-0 in the third round of the 1988 British Open. The victory was achieved with Reardon using his old cue with which he had won his world titles, having been encouraged to rebuild it by Steve Davis. However, in the next round, played under TV lighting, Reardon suffered a drying of contact lenses and lost 2-5 to David Rowe, having led 2-1. Reardon played his last competitive ranking match in the 1991 World Championship qualifying second round. He lost 5-10 to Jason Prince, losing 3 frames on the black. Upon this loss, Reardon announced that there was no bitterness on his part, but he would not be returning. Having slipped to 127th in the provisional ranking and now aged 58, Reardon called a halt to his formal playing career. Reardon's last formal appearance in an event came in the 2000 Seniors event, where he lost his opening one-frame match 46-69 to Graham Miles. Reardon maintains an active interest in the game. He also advised Ronnie O'Sullivan on his way to his 2004 World Championship victory, giving him psychological and tactical help. Reardon now resides in Torquay, Devon. He is currently the president of the golf club in Churston, Devon. Reardon made a playing appearance at a Snooker Legends evening in Plymouth in July 2010. The Welsh Open Trophy was renamed the Ray Reardon Trophy in his honor, starting with the 2017 edition of the tournament. Performance and rankings timeline. Career finals. Ranking finals, 6-5 titles, 1 runner-up. Non-ranking finals, 47-21 titles, 26 runners-up. Team finals, 6-3 titles, 3 runners-up. Pro-Am finals, 3-1 title, 2 runners-up. Amateur finals, 8-7 titles, 1 runner-up.